Hey, we made it. We're here. It's the Jack Kirby 3 day Jack Kirby Museum 3 days for 103. It's our first actual guest event, and we're really thrilled to have Tom Scioli here. I'm Rand Hoppy. I'm the executive director of the museum.
I'm Tom Kraft, the president of the museum.
And Tom, tell us, who are you, Tom?
My name's Tom Scioli. I'm a cartoonist, writer, artist, and I just did a graphic biography of Jack Kirby called Jack Kirby: The Epic Life of the King of Comics.
Yes. All right. So I guess we'll fire up our presentation here a little bit. So there's our beautiful logo, another beautiful logo. There's Tom Scioli, and it's the beginning. So.
Yeah. Some great eye candy here.
Yeah. The don't kid with big guys, cockroach.
So quotable. So much of Jack's writing. A really underappreciated aspect of his creations are his very specific language.
It's true. Yeah. This is from Street Code.
Street Code, like the most blanketly autobiographical comic that Kirby's done. Direct autobiography by request. He wasn't like, oh, I'm dying to tell my story. I need to tell my story. He was asked to create something, a comic about his childhood, and he did. It's like this wonderful, beautiful artifact. I'm so glad it exists. I wish there were 1,000 pages. Like
I know. Yeah. And the fun thing about it too was, he used to just tell war stories all the time.
Yeah.
So like if you were with Jack Kirby socially, that's what you would get, about what's going on with stabbing Nazis and explosions of humans, and it's pretty rough stuff, but it really affected him so much that that's what he wanted to, the stories that he wanted to share with people. But there was that one time when he was at dinner with Roz and Richard Kyle, right? There.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was Richard said, Jack, why? How come you've never put any of this stuff to paper? And Jack's response was, who would care? Nobody cares about me and this stuff. They want to learn about Asgard and Apocalypse and New Genesis. Like they don't care about little old me.
Yeah. So there's some more. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, just like you're really getting like a direct insight into his world, and like the world that his comics came out of. Like, these sort of like gang fights and street fights that he got in as a kid, to me, that kind of, forms that whole, Jack Kirby superhero approach that we know, where it's like guys jumping from rooftop to rooftop, climbing up scaffolding, throwing things at each other, headbutts and
I'm really fond of the guy in the foreground, like trucking in front of that. In front of that stone, that monument.
Yeah, and he's got that sort of. Or maybe not. I was going to say he's got the Jughead Jones. I know somebody in that store has the Jughead Jones hat.
Yeah,
which is like a real thing. Like when I was a kid, I didn't know what to make of it. I thought it was like a vase that he smashed and put on his head, which I think was in like the Wizard of Oz, like the Cowardly Lion does that.
Right, that's a good connection. Yeah,
but no, it's like kids would take their hat and scallop.
It was like a junk hat, like some dad's hat went bad, and then they would like cut it so that it could still be used as a child, right?
Yeah, but these weren't abstract references to Kirby. These were like things from his real life.
Oh man, and he
and it's like a monument carver's studio or store or whatever, carving great headstones and things, just really specific.
Yeah, I think it was next door to where he lived was the monument place. We have a picture of the monument store.
That's awesome. I love when these when people locate like the exact Kirby thing, where you can see like his house on Long Island. You can see the
Yeah.
house he was born in, which looks like a Jack. Like even today, still looks.
Still does.
There's like I wish I would have pulled this for the presentation, but there's like a Fantastic Four splash page, like a splash within the story itself of like the Thing like lifting up.
Oh yeah.
You know, like exactly, and it looks exactly like the house.
True, I never thought that.
So I'm just going to step out for a second just to say we are on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and we welcome your comments. We're going to be answering questions closer to the end, but please feel free to say hello and in the comments section so that we we'll get to some Q&A session somewhere around like in the 12:40 or something like that. Okay, sorry, just wanted to get that in there. So yeah, all right, let's go to the next one.
Let's see what else we got.
Oh yeah,
more and that looks like like Avengers issue. I forget what, like the cover of one of the early Avengers things where it's like the Hulk and everybody, they're like all on this scaffolding, and they're like this is Jack Kirby's origin story, and it's one of the last comics he made. Yeah. And it's going full circle. It's like the birth of Kirby, and like Jack Kirby's, like his World War II experience was certainly like a big, factor, like that contributed to the sort of bombastic quality of his work and the humanistic quality. But his childhood, I'd say, was the more formative. That like his childhood kind of set the stage for all of it, like the tremendous like trauma of it. And if you read like his comics that he did before he went to war, like Commandos and things like that, they were really vivid and very true to life and really well observed. And he hadn't experienced that yet. So like he's going from this like, what probably felt like, war to him as a child and really like imprinted on his brain, this thing that like, most comics artists prior to Kirby, like a building is just a background. But for him, it's a playground. It's a jungle gym,
Right.
Where horrible things happen.
Yeah. Sometimes I would say something like he'd gone through like 2 war zones, the ghetto and then the European theater.
Yeah, they compounded. And it shows in his work.
It does. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
it in the belly.
I love that. Like this is like the proto Kirby panel. This is like
Kirby.
Exactly. This is everything. This is like the history of Jack Kirby's body of work in one panel. It's like a little guy hitting a big guy with nothing, like just full attitude and pain and anguish on the faces. And then here we are. It's Jacob wrestling the angel. You can kind of see the comparison between the two, and I'm sure there's something autobiographic here too. Jack Kirby's name is Jacob. So I'm sure he related to this, and this is an example of the kind of stuff Jack did in his off hours. This is what he did for pleasure, and so maybe people are always wondering like, okay, Jack's the content of his work was largely dictated by how he perceived the market, what he thought the readership was looking for. But if he were to just purely create for himself or what he wanted to create, absent from the marketplace, what would he create? And I think this is like a pretty good indication of a possibility, because this is things that he had a full work day, full work week, full work year, and he still managed to do a ton of drawing for leisure. So this is pure stuff, I think.
Yeah.
That along with his collages.
Yeah, the collages, exactly. Yeah. I mean that I think he just took a tremendous amount of like enjoyment out of the act of like looking through these images and the cutting. It is fun. I've done it myself. It is fun. And then here is like one of his earliest attempts at publication. This was I don't know if this was like intended for like the New Yorker or something along those lines. These sort of editorial cartoons, and you see techniques that we don't normally associate with Kirby. The sort of classic cartooning, wash, the medium. But yeah, it's and you see it's all there, like from day one. You know, so much. You know, his world was like a crowded world. It was, you know, bustling and living, and you know, that's the world he grew up in. He grew up in a crowded world, so like there's no wasted real estate in a Jack Kirby panel.
Hey, all right.
There we go. Yeah, that's where he did all of it from, like, I guess like 1969 or 1970 onward, like around there. Yeah. This is his studio in California. He gets a lot of sun in there, which is probably very welcome to him after working in a basement for most of his career.
With a vista out the window too.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Just like
hilltop home. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Until like the motorcycle gang started, you know, which I think was like maybe a different house.
It was a different home.
Yeah, he had like a house in between his New York and his you know, final California home.
I just want to crow a little bit. We actually the Kirby Museum has that statue of the Viking in our collection.
Thor statue. So what's the story behind it? What was it? You know, how long did he have it?
It was a gift. It was purchased in a store. It's a Viking statue. You can actually search online and find modern versions of it, right, Tom? Didn't we do that?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
and it was just I think Mike Thibodeau, and Steve Robertson, or definitely Mike. I think it was just a gift
from them. Yeah, I know. Like Thibodeau talks about how when he first went to meet Jack at his home, that's what he imagined, except, you know, 100 feet tall. He expected seeing like massive, you know, Norse statuary. Like he thought he was going to Asgard.
Right. Well, he helped make it happen, I guess. Then.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly. Got it one step closer.
That's right.
I love all that stuff. Like whenever, you know, things start getting back to normal and stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, you could have like an amazing exhibit where you get to sort of like walk in Kirby's world and see those little things like that statue. That's awesome. I didn't know you guys had that. That's amazing.
We had it at a few of our convention booths since it's been in our collection. All right.
Yeah, this is. Kirby lists this New Gods #7, The Pact. He lists that as his favorite comic. You know, when he was pinned down to give an answer, like what's your favorite comic that you made? This is his, and it's mine too. It's my favorite comic of all time, but it's certainly my favorite Jack Kirby comic. And again, it's like, it's from the heart. It's unlike anything else.
Yeah.
Nobody else could have created it. It's mystical. Like it's like that's one thing I'm getting from a lot of Kirby's text. Like why I think his voice and his writing, like why I like prefer that to like everything else, to like is there's like a mystical quality to it. Probably because it's like a lot of the complaints are that it's not direct enough, or it's not flowery. But to me, it's like, you know, sometimes you aren't quite sure what it means in the same way you wouldn't be sure you know, like the Eddas or something, you know, like
right. Yeah. I mean, Mike Royer always calls it operatic.
Yes.
And that I think that's fair. It's just, you know, when he started getting having those larger comics available, the 25-cent comics for the Fourth World, like there's this one interview with he and Carmine Infantino that these fans ask questions. It's like January '71 in Carmine's office. So publications, it's only been kind of like the first few publications have been out, and it's just this. There's a section at the end where they're just so clearly trying to reach something else, you know, and the simplest way to say it would be they're really thinking they're going to capture like a Lord of the Rings audience, you know, rather than Superman.
Right.
And it's like when the Fourth World happened, and then he got those to be the ability to do a 26-page story.
Yes. Those are his best, like his best comics are those 24 pages, 26 pages.
Yes.
It's like, it really is like a perfect length. It's
so good.
Just enough to kind of breathe a little bit, but not excessive. Like that was his comfort zone. And those are like, I think this one, The Pact, was 24 pages, And then like the Glory Boat was maybe 26, and I think the Mr. Miracle #9 Hyman was probably like 26 pages too. But it's just this real sweet spot. And then you think about when in the 70s at Marvel his page count went down to 17, and it's like, wow, that is a lean comic that and he still managed to fit like so much in this tiny they're all almost like different challenges, but this is a comfort zone. When he had a lot of pages to work on, sometimes he would sort of maybe flounder a little bit. Like I'm thinking of the Silver Surfer graphic novel, where like he might have had too many pages to fill there, but this is perfect.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, just more of it, and it's like this like incredibly like heartfelt story with a ton of action, costumes you've never seen before, colors you've never seen before, and just like great action. And we're just sort of seeing this origin story of the series that you've been you're like 6 issues in just to this title alone, but you're into this like huge mythology, and then with issue 7 it's like, okay, we're going to take a step back. We're going to show you the bigger picture. He calls it like a tapestry. This is the larger tapestry. And I mean, I want 100 comics like this. I want 1,000 and there's just very precious few.
True.
Even within Kirby's body of work.
Right.
And then there again, this is like that, I'll give you one in the belly.
That's right. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, Night Fighter. Yeah, I pulled this one out because it's kind of like Night Fighter is like a very interesting little pocket. And like in my book, Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, one thing like people ask me a lot about is like Kirby's role in Spider-Man, because it is like it is kind of head scratching. It's like, what is it? And I was kind of like looking for different bits of evidence and things like that. And I feel like Night Fighter, and again, there's not a smoking gun. No. Anywhere that you have to just kind of put all these pieces together. Exactly. Not yet. Yeah, we're getting closer. Like I'm always shocked when like new things pop up. But like Night Fighters it looks very close to what Steve Ditko describes when he said, "Oh yeah, I had some Jack Kirby pages. It looked like The Fly or something. He had boots. He had this and that. He had a gun. Like, and that's like very different than what I Steve Ditko created in terms of costume and things like." It feels like they're describing Night Fighter, and then even the name is almost like, how close was it maybe to being called Night Spider? And he walks up. There's other pictures of Night Fighter walking up a wall, with just his feet, and that gun, could very easily be the web gun that we keep hearing about.
Yeah, I have this fantasy, where the conspiracy brain kind of wants to make something that doesn't really exist, but maybe it does. Which is the original art to the cover for Amazing Fantasy 15.
Right. Yeah.
Did it have originally this costume on it?
Sure. And this is, if you look closely at this is kind of like a repurposed Fighting American.
Yeah, that's
image.
right.
I think you see like Speedy in the background.
Down there. That's right. Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe prior to that, it was like a repurposed Captain America cover. Because Kirby would continually recycle and reuse and so maybe like you're talking about this like original Amazing Fantasy cover might be another version of this, another like repurposed version of this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This is I think I don't know if this is like the official title of these talks, but we're talking about like my Kirby, like my Kirby, and this is like my introduction to Kirby's comics, at least. Like I was a consumer of Saturday morning cartoons right at the time Jack Kirby was working in that medium. And I remember all those cartoons. Like, of course, there was, you'd see his name at the end of the credits. I wasn't looking for that as a kid. But this is like, as far as I can recall, this is the first Jack Kirby comic that I owned, that I read. And again, like seeing this, and it was at a time when comics had there were comic book stores, like comics had crossed over into, it was like kind of the beginning of that stuff.
Oh, okay.
It was one of those things. It was like up on the wall, and it was maybe like $2 or $3, and it's like I had some money in my pocket, and it's big, and it's this beautiful image, and so I got that, and it made me fall in love with Kirby's work. I wasn't aware of Jack Kirby again, even though his name is in there and big. I wasn't looking, like I saw Stan Lee's name and I didn't like read any further into the credits. Like, okay, I know who Stan Lee is. He's the voice of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and the Incredible Hulk. I know who Stan Lee is. Okay, that's who's responsible for this amazing comic. And this comic, like I still have it. I read it a million times. I bought a second copy. I still kept my original copy, but I just sort of read it to pieces. And it's like everything I want out of it, a Jack Kirby comic. And it is kind of similar to The Pact. It's kind of this epic story. It comes in the middle of this long run, or towards the end of this long run. And it's a complete story, even though it's obviously a piece of something larger. Yeah. It's still a very complete story in and of itself, but it hints at larger things going on before and after. And it made me a fan for life. Again, even though I didn't know the name. The cover, I'm curious about the cover. I didn't find out too much about it. I haven't seen like a pencil version of it. I'm not like it's very obviously Kirby with maybe some like John Romita adjustments possibly to like the face or inking. But
Thor's face looks like it could be Romita.
Yeah, and it's a double page splash. There's like a back to it. That continues. I mean, maybe it's just because it's like the first Kirby I encountered, but I think it's like one of his great covers, but it doesn't really come up in the discussion of his great covers. Right. And I'm just curious, like, it's just a really incredible piece of work that's got like everything. Mm-hmm. And again, when you're seeing it large, wrong way. Yep. And then here's some stuff, from that issue. And it's like, you're a kid reading this, you're kind of small to begin with. And then this is like an extra large comic. So it's this, a creature like this that again is like not scary, like has an edge to him, but not scary enough to be scary, but like super interesting, like obviously evil, obviously unstoppable, and super interesting. Like I've never seen anything like that. It's very rare. Like maybe when Mike Mignola entered the scene, you started seeing maybe some things along these lines, but other than that, like this is kind of like an entity to itself and exclusively owned by Jack Kirby, artistically, if not legally.
It's kind of it's disturbing, right?
Yes.
It's a monster. So you're a kid and you're looking at this and you're like, oh my gosh,
And the story, like the design reinforces that, the story reinforces that. All through the story, it's you just see him, the Mangog, bulldozing over everything in his way, right? And that he's going to destroy the universe, and you believe it. Like especially as a kid, you read, and even as an adult, you kind of the suspension of disbelief is very easy with a comic like this. Like you really think he is going to like pull that sword out and somehow cut the universe in half.
Yeah, and it's big too, so you're like in, right?
Yeah, it fills your vision. And then this is another one. This one I encountered later. This one I got when I was like in college. Oh, okay. Maybe. But again, it's like another piece of the puzzle. This was like my in to the Fantastic Four. Okay. Like I ended up working on a Fantastic Four comic. Like I did Fantastic Four Grand Design, where I was tasked with telling the entire story of the Fantastic Four in 80 pages and then published in a Treasury edition.
A trifle. Yeah.
No small task. But this was again, this would make anybody into a Fantastic Four fan. You have a lot of like some of the, like the early stuff. You have the comic where I think I have like a panel later on in maybe the next slide. Maybe this but anyway, like there's a panel of like the Thing getting punched in the face. He opens up the reading viewer mail. The Fantastic Four reading the viewer mail. And Sue's upset because all the mail seems to say that she should quit the group, which I guess like reflected that the mail they were getting in the Marvel office from all these little boys saying like, hey, what's that dame doing in this comic? And then the Thing opens up a letter from the Yancey Street, a box from the Yancey Street gang, punches him in the face. Great stuff. And then it like segues into the Silver Surfer and Galactus, so you get like in all the way into the cosmic stuff, and it's it's like okay, I want to know more about this. And prior to that, my understanding of the Fantastic Four was kind of secondary, because I'd read like an issue of Spider-Man or whatever, and then the Fantastic Four would be scolding him, and tisk tisk tisk, and so they were kind of like bummers. They were like adult, like Spider-Man is like the character you're identifying with, and then they're like the grown-ups. So it's interesting seeing like what their story is, and I think like in the larger sort of like Marvel story or whatever, like Fantastic Four kind of became these kind of parent figures because they sort of had the most like developed sort of adult life, becoming parents and whatnot, and so they kind of got calcified into that role. But if you look at it from like they are anti-establishment figures. They are young. If you go to the very beginning, they're young. They're hellraisers. There's ongoing romantic tensions, which again were settled before I was born, probably before you guys were born too. And so it's all old news. But if you go back, it's got like all the drama that we would associate with like the Claremont X-Men or something.
Yeah. And what about the High Evolutionary?
High Evolutionary, again, Kirby would just like trot out these like amazing sci-fi concepts, just like very incidentally. And again, you talk about like what if Kirby had his druthers, what kind of stuff he's into. I think it's like this. Like he was a fan of pulp. He was a fan of he collected. He didn't collect comics. He collected pulp, specifically science fiction pulp magazines. And this is the sort of idea that comes straight out of there. It's from like The Lost World, or it's very this is up his alley, I think. And again, he if he had gotten proper compensation for incidentally creating all these amazing concepts, he probably would have kept doing it at Marvel, but he had to stop. He had to do like a painful thing to himself of like, I'm going to hold back. I'm going to cut off the flow. Yeah. He'd rather create all this cool stuff, but it's like he just got like punished over and over for it.
Yeah, I and it's there are the story incidences, but with like the hymn story where Stan changed the intent of the story so much. But man, when that Silver Surfer first issue came out, that must have been like a kick in the gut. I mean, it's just his, to have his. There's that one comment that's out there from one of his interviews. It's like, well, how would you feel about seeing your children raised by other people? So. Oh man, we just went over that a week ago or so.
Okay, yeah, the project, great, another like kind of like really cool sci-fi concept of Kirby's, and this like Clone Factory, and I think maybe the next
there it is.
slide. Yeah. Oh, okay. There. I think I have this in like a different order than I'm recalling. But yeah, there's the thing getting punched in the face. But yeah, that sort of like Clone Factory thing. Yeah. It was like it was again another like pulp idea that he went back to again and again and would refine. And there's like the Cadmus seed from like Alarming Tales #2. There's like a famous like sort of early version of this, and I do think of this like when with like Star Wars and like the Clone Wars and stuff, they sort of had this clone factory and things, and Kirby was there first and did it better. Like I think his Clone Factory is a lot cooler looking.
It is, yeah. Oh man,
like just such a great and Fantastic Four is like one of the few comics that I'll like laugh out loud at, like reading, and this is like this is an example right here. It's pure pantomime. It's and again the Thing particularly. He makes me laugh. I think the Thing is very funny, and obviously like a large component of that is Stan Lee's writing. Like he would write good jokes for the Thing, as he would write good jokes for Spider-Man. But then also like what Kirby's doing in sort of the pantomime and sometimes in the dialogue is equal or more important. And so here's just a great that this panel gets especially the setup to it, where he's like opening the mail and just like
a 3-panel sequence.
Right?
It's kind of a testament to Jack as a cartoonist and not just the comic book artist, but actually having a cartoony expression in
not just like the guy who depicts like the end of the world and like he and this is a large part of just the language of comics, and he did a ton of comics like that. He he did, a bunch of comics in every imaginable, genre. And so he did more than his share of gags, even if we don't quite associate him with it.
Man, I love Lockjaw the Alligator, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
That stuff is hilarious.
And if you look at, Greg Theakston, would publish these like books of like Jack Kirby comic strips, some of them that never saw the light of day, or if they did see the light of day, it was in like, very, very small circulation.
Yes.
And he's got, Popeye, he's got Sacco the Sea Dog, and he's got, just all kinds of, humor cartoons.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. And this is another thing, just kind of, when the Silver Surfer shows up in Fantastic Four, he kind of like steals the show. The comic almost could have just become his event. Like it's kind of, you could kind of like, Daredevil and the Wise Guys, how like Daredevil gets like phased out as like the wise guy becomes the wise guy. It could have easily, this could have easily, I think Jack might have been more interested in the series if it had gone that way. Like the interesting thing working on Fantastic Four is that I get the sense that even Jack Kirby was getting tired of the Fantastic Four before he was done working on them.
Yeah.
You kind like, and again, part of that could be just the business situation, but when you see like where his ideas went, it's kind of like if he had continued on the Fantastic Four in a real way, in like a fully invested way, they probably would have shed their skin in a lot of ways. Like they probably would have, gotten these like elaborate, sort of cosmic outfits, and maybe some of them would have died and been replaced by somebody else. Like a
Ragnarok of the realm.
Ragnarok of because that is kind of what we're sort of seeing, is that Jack was sort of pushing at Marvel for a Ragnarok, like an end of the world for like the whole line, where he could get
it cracked me up. I was looking when we did we're doing this Fourth World series, and during the intro episode that we did, we were looking at the Thor, Tales of Asgard, and Ragnarok stuff, and it was like, I could just imagine. This is just imagination on my part. I could just imagine Jack saying, "Look, Thor is in this comic called Journey into Mystery. Let's change the property. Let's have a Ragnarok and have these new gods."
Mm-hmm.
And then Stan, and again, my imagination, Stan is like, "Oh, sorry, I sold the rights to Thor to a cartoon, and I'm changing the name of the comic to Thor." Yeah,
you kind of, once these things become larger properties, there is just tremendous pressure to sort of, keep them in place.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Galactus, the big G. I mean, again, this is all stuff from that Treasury edition that I fell in love with, and people like complain about that G on Galactus's outfit, and it did even Kirby, like it got erased pretty shortly after this, but I think his costume doesn't look complete without it, or like he needs something there, and Kirby did he did provide like there's that one drawing he did where he took like a photostat of Galactus in Thor,
right,
and he drew in this, he colored it, and he drew in, he obviously felt that there was a gap there, and he drew this like really cool abstract symbol there that somewhat resembles a G, but it's largely
I forgot about that. I'm gonna have to look at it. And of course the joke is that it was like an idiom at the time, right, where when you would talk about God, you would call him the big G.
The big G, and here he is.
Right. So then it's like, the editorial meeting is like, well, what if the FF meet the big G?
Right.
All right, I'll be back with 21 pages,
Yeah, and there's the G. Oh, yeah, this is like, this is from the Kirby Collector. And just like, when they were like a big part of, sort of my learning about Jack Kirby, when I was younger. And this kind of stuff blew me. Like, first of all, the idea of Jack Kirby doing like a straight comic strip, like I guess like Mary Worth or Rex Morgan or something, and doing it with such style, and then seeing what his pencils looked like that blew me away. Like I never saw like a comic book that was as like beautifully rendered as Jack's pencils,
right?
And it does kind of, like, if you look at other creators from that era, it's kind of the same across the board, like a Dick Ayers pencils or what, like they had this like richness and depth that like was definitely, you know, got filtered out by the necessary at the time inking process.
Yeah. And you know, when I look at this stuff, I think about the inking and how not just the inking, but like his staging, and the props, but like how the lessons that he would take from someone like Kniff in order to move the eye through the inking with the filling in of the blacks and stuff. It's just, you know, that's like the great eye tracking, eye movement stuff that Jack did, that not a lot of other guys really did as well as Jack. That's why I always felt like Jack was like, you were in that comic. It was like a 3D comic, because Jack really got you in there.
Yeah, his comics were 3D comics, and they had sound too.
Right.
You know, you could almost hear.
It was very influenced by movies too. They looked like sets out of a movie.
Yeah, that was like the world he was in. It is like, I'd always sort of wonder, like, oh, you know, what his influences were, where he got certain things. Did he, you know, study, you know, classical art and things like that? But then you see, like, okay, it's a lot of movies, it's a lot of comics, like particularly comic strips. Hal Foster's Prince Valiant is you know, probably where all these like classical, like you see the Vikings in there, you see all the pageantry and the monsters, the grotesques, you know.
Yep. All right.
And yeah, Kniff, he always noted Kniff as like a big influence, and you see it. Yeah, this was like a story in the boy Commandos, where it was the first story in the series where like the whole issue is like devoted to like one big story, which was a rarity in those days, and it was a rarity for Kirby. And I think like so much of like the strength of his later work is this sort of like ongoing, you know, where the stories are like large, like at least as long as the comic you're reading, but then sometimes even more so. I think that was, you know, like a big step for him, and you know, what made his work so enduring. And this panel and the next slide are the last two panels of this story, and it's really interesting. It's this sort of like World War II story, and this is at a time when like the outcome was still unresolved. Like you didn't know where this you know, real world event was going to go, and Kirby sort of states that in the previous panel, like, we're going to do everything we can, but we don't know what's going to happen, and that he saw it at like all this like destruction and death, that like possibly a utopia could come out of it.
And he cites the Roosevelt Four Freedoms, right? Which is really cool to see. I don't recall ever having seen that before. That's really, really great.
Yeah, and he creates like an Asgard or New Genesis sort of like sci-fi utopia.
Like
so when you see those themes return like again and again to his work, like that was an important thing to him. And I think, you know, a really like probably felt, you know, very powerfully at that time, you know, and when he's about to go over there.
Right. Wow.
You know?
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah.
So
great slides. We're moving all through everything.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, this is like one of the, I mean, I think it's changed now, but when I was sort of reading these comics in the 90s, you know, they came out in the 70s, but in the they were pretty disreputable. Like the Jack Kirby 70s Captain America was sort of you know, scoffed at, and like don't even mention Devil Dinosaur. Where like I think it's a very different conversation now. Like I love these comics to death, and you talk about like Jack Kirby's comics being almost like animated, like they're actually moving. I think it was never more so than in his like 70s work. Like these are like really like in your face, shaky cam images, you know, and like super cool, and like Arnim Zola, that sort of, you know, face, that's like as good a design as Kirby ever made for a character.
Oh, we've got MODOK with the big head. We've got Arnim Zola with the face on the screen. You know, he's working the combinations. No, it's great.
And you got like Proteus, I think was his name. This sort of like amorphous character. Again, like these are two sort of extremes of Jack's design sense. He would have like these very like intricately designed, like very textured characters like the Thing, and then he'd have a character like the Silver Surfer who's almost like, you know, pure sheen, like there's or luminous, like super simple, like almost not a character design, so simple.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you put this in here.
Yeah, we're getting into like real oddball territory again. Like the more you love Jack Kirby's work, I think the more you love when he like really goes off the rails, gets really oddball, and his animation work, like those animation designs, are probably like the strongest example of that. He was like going for it. He was in pure entertainer mode and like just anything for a laugh, and some of it's kind of like grotesque or perverse, like in a really interesting way, like kind of like underground cartoonist aspect to it.
Yeah.
And so this was this Animal Hospital. This was a cartoon that never got made. During his Ruby Spears years. A really great era for him, sort of creatively and very happy time.
Looks like Alfredo Alcala on Inks.
Yeah, on the Inks. Yeah, what an amazing pairing. Yeah. Alcala and Kirby, like two creators that like couldn't be more different.
I know. And
you combine them, and it is so weird. Like it's Destroyer Duck. Like those Destroyer Duck comics are really like kind of scary.
Yeah.
And it like I think a large part is that sort of you'd call it like a mismatch, maybe, but they create something incredible, like that you've never seen before when they get together. And I love Alcala just in his own right too. Like such a huge fan of his stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like talking about Kirby covers, and I mean it's it's got like the Kirby bombast and like in your face quality, but then there's also like a subtlety to it. Like it is ultimately this large figure just sitting.
Yeah.
But like the perspective, like where else do you see perspective like that and depth? And I think like this era of Kirby art, like the covers, where there'd be like in among the color, there's like this gray wash.
Right.
It makes these like really kind of like somber image, like this. You could see this in hanging in the Louvre or something.
Oh man, yep. Boy,
Okay.
A favorite of many.
Yeah, what a great design. Yeah, and if you see like a punk rock poster or something with some bit of Kirby art grabbed for, like I've seen this one a lot for that. I've seen a lot of because it's just, man, it whether you know who Kirby is or not, that's like an image that'll knock you on your feet. And it's got everything. It's got the sci-fi. It's got like Egyptian mummy stuff. Yeah. It's got the myth. It's the past and the future, and it's mystery and power and pretty scary image, like within the confines of the code. I think it was kind of interesting how Kirby was able to create like really revelatory stuff within these like insane confines. And the Forever People. Again, that's just like a really cool composition. Like the character designs are great, and again, like another sort of underappreciated Kirby creation. Like I put them up, with any of his creations, and I think again, it's like a different era now, and now that they're kind of putting them back in print, I think it'll be like a different conversation. But some of Kirby's finest moments are in that comic.
Yeah.
And this is Jack returning to the fourth world, returning to the New Gods, that big epic that he was creating, that he put so much of his creative effort into and was not able to properly finish. He was coming back, and so he'd do these sort of covers for the reprint. So we're seeing like Jack at like the end of his career revisiting this thing, and just really fun images and stuff. Yeah, more of that 70s cap. Yeah. And just the close-ups and what a great moment too. Like somebody's stolen Captain America's shield and is desecrating it and misusing it, using it for like all the wrong reasons, and he's ready to take it back.
Yep. It's like the X-Men cover.
Same kind of thing. A seated figure that's like very strange. Unlike anything you've seen. Also kind of echoes the Overlord too.
Right.
You know,
Right. That's right.
just
Yeah.
like he seemed to have this like never-ending supply of these designs that look like
Yeah.
nothing you've ever seen. Like imagine if like, you know, this is like something, I think this is like from a reprint maybe from the 70s or something, but like this was like an image he drew in the 50s.
Yeah.
And like imagine if like the 50s movies, all those
I
monster
know.
movies had these kind of designs.
That's
If they had like Jack Kirby designing characters for them. And yeah, just like more Kirby pencils and the liner notes. You know, he would write these sort of notes of like, okay, here's what's going on. You know, hey Stan, here's what's going on in this comic. You know, and again, like since we're kind of acquainted with Jack Kirby's originals and his pencils, we've sort of seen it, and it is often like a different story is being told.
Yeah.
But a story is really being told in a form that like, you know, nobody got to really see.
Yeah. You know, I want to leave some time for some Q&A.
Oh, sure. Yeah. If you want to do that. Yeah.
It's been great. I
could talk forever about
I
Jack
know
Kirby.
we could, of course. But maybe, oh man, there's so much.
Just some like classic stuff. Yeah. There's the Cadmus seed, the
Mountain of Judgment.
Mountain of Judgment, again, just one.
So good.
He has a never-ending supply of these designs.
Yeah.
And like Apocalypse, again, like this world that we got a glimpse of for like two glorious years. You know, this whole universe, just one planet of many, which he revisits in the 80s.
Yeah.
There's Kirby doing, and, you know, and in a lot of ways, kind of, I think originating the thing that we kind of associate with like Ditko and Doctor Strange of like this like otherworldly, other dimensional stuff. And again, like a you know, predates Doctor Strange, like that sort of character. Yeah. Kirby pencils towards, you know, one of the last works he did, Superpowers. You know,
you did some Superpowers stuff.
I did some Superpowers comics. Yeah, it was an honor working on that.
Yep.
New Gods #4. Like, the New Gods double splash is some of my favorite Kirby imagery in some of my favorite Kirby comics.
Yeah.
You know, this stuff will make a Kirby fan out of anybody.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's the Pact.
Yeah, this is, and again, talking about like his movie influences, you see like, you know, those like biblical epics that like he was probably, you know, seeing like the black and white like silent versions, like like not the Cecil B. DeMille remake of Ten Commandments that we all know, but like the earlier stuff.
Yeah. Oh, and then this is the Armageddon stuff.
Yeah, Armageddon. Yeah, On the Road to Armageddon, which is like, I think Jack's like great unpublished work. Yeah. It's like part of the New God series. You know, he did it, you know, at the, you know, towards the end, you know, in the 80s when he was, you know, trying to wrap it up. I'd put it up there next to like any of his prime stuff, and still has yet to be sort of, you know, published as it's been like repurposed and rearranged. But yeah, a great Kirby comic that the world needs to experience at some point, hopefully.
Oh my gosh, so many great comments. Charles is here. Thank you, Charles.
I see Charles. Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, I noticed one of his comments. Real good.
So
if you want to hit any of these, I mean,
trying to.
There's a lot of them, that's for sure.
Are there any?
Yeah, and I think Charles is maybe 50% of the comments. He's yeah.
So we have a question about: are there any instances where Kirby's characters broke out of the panel on his comics?
Oh, yeah, all the time. You know,
mostly a lot of them in the 40s, right? Like Captain America 1, all that.
Here's something from Chris Gibbs on YouTube. Did you have to almost unlearn a lot of what you thought was correct drawing anatomy when you originally first started studying imitating Kirby's art style?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I wanted to learn how to think like Kirby and draw like Kirby because it was so foreign from like, you know, my understanding of things. So different, like, and I loved it. So yeah, you did, and I think like early on I kind of underappreciated and didn't fully understand. Just like the sophistication of what Jack was doing. Like it seems like he simplifies forms, and it seems like he does like it doesn't follow the laws of anatomy, but it's like you have to, like, to do what he does, you really do have to like understand like every little bit of it.
Let's see. I'm honestly, I'm just looking for questions.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the comments. It's really
this is awesome. Yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying how much people are
yeah, I mean,
engaging.
I think we got up to 46 eyeballs according to my little manager.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really great. Thanks for everybody for coming by. Wow. So, Glenn Fleming says Jack's mother would pull him out of the movie theater every weekend. Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah,
true.
like they knew where to find him.
Yeah, they were.
If his
like,
mom needed him, he's at the movie theater.
I was looking at how many movie theaters there were on the Lower East Side near where he lived, and there were like 10.
Wow. Lynn Walker has like a comment or question about DC really has an opportunity to step it up in terms of the way they present Jack's Fourth World work, restore the collage art, give us the Hunger Dogs as originally planned, and so on. Like I would love to see a Hunger Dogs artist edition with everything, with the pencils, the Royer inks, the D. Bruce Berry inks, the Theakston inks, and then the combined inks. And, I'd love to see I think Hunger Dogs is this like really, again, underappreciated work that it's just like an epic in and of itself, and every version of it has its virtues. But I think when you look at it in total and like really take it apart like that, it's this like.
I agree. I read it again for the first time in years in order for these live streams we're doing. I was really moved. I felt like I was reading it for the first time. I really got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
50-year-old man, maybe.
Right. It's about contending with your own mortality and things, and that like On the Road to Armageddon, which was sort of the first piece of Hunger Dog, like really hits that that's sort of like an unqualified, like you don't have to make any excuses for On the Road to Armageddon. It's like just awesome. Where the Hunger Dogs is like you kind of have to like use a little, you have to be sort of generous with the work as you're engaging with it.
Oh, here's a good one from Charles. Can you tell us how you arrived at the structure and pacing of the bio?
Yeah, I mean it was it was just by necessity. There's so much ground to cover, and 200 some pages aren't enough. 1,000 pages aren't enough. 10,000 pages would probably be enough. But yeah, it's so much ground. So it was just like, how do I present this in a way that people can understand, enjoy the flow of it, and say all the things that really need to be said? Because and again, had to leave a lot out.
On that note, we're 52 minutes in, and we've got to hop over to the next show.
Okay.
It's been freaking great, Tom.
Yeah, this was great. I really enjoyed it.
Let's do it again. Let's do something else.
Okay.
We'll pick a subject. Maybe we'll invite you in, or you can join us in some kind of round table or something. But
at the very least, Kirby's 104th birthday, but hopefully sooner than that.
That's right. Yes.
Hopefully that will be physically. We'll all be
in person, right?
That's right.
A real round table.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining and the comments and the viewing.
Thank
Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Thanks again, Tom.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tom.